All right, welcome to the Contractor Commute. My name is Drew, and we have a guest today with us, Mark Olson from SWi Fence and the Successful Contractor. Mark, thanks for taking time to talk to us today.
Happy to do it. Always glad to talk with people about contracting.
Mark hosts really two YouTube channels, one the SWi Fence, but the Successful Contractors, where we've been tuning in and finding a ton of value from you really documenting your journey of building your company from the ground up. And so can you start by talking about really your background, and specifically, I know you're on a goal to be a $3 million company in 2 years, I think was the goal you set out here. Can you kind of talk our listeners through like that journey, how you started, what put you on this track, and what you're trying to accomplish there?
How far back do you want me to go? Do you want to know how? Because nobody sets out in high school thinking, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to spend my life building fence. Nobody right. does that. So I just want to be very clear. That's not a career path.
Right. Hey, but yeah, let's start there. So how did you get it? You started with fence building, and I think you started when you were in high school, and then started in Wyoming, ended up in Florida. So if you want to take just a couple minutes and kind of walk through that journey, that would be awesome.
So I'll give the sweet and condensed version. So I was 15 years old, and I was kind of a problem child, and my parents got me hooked up with a guy in their church that said, hey, I'll put these guys to work. I had no idea what I was signing up for. And, he kind of told us what he was going to pay us. And I'm like, I was too young and stupid to understand what that really meant. And it basically ended up being that for the summer, we worked for $300 a month. My first paycheck, I think, went entirely to buy a good set of boots that I could work in the mountains of Wyoming in and not die. And so we would work sun up till sundown, 6 days a week. And that basically equated to about $1 an hour. So it worked all summer long. And one of the caveats was there was two caveats. If we learned everything, then he would advance us and pay us as much money as we wanted to make, quote unquote, and then we couldn't quit. So I was like, I didn't really know what I was signing up for when I agreed to those terms. The money surprisingly never came, and at the end of the summer, then I basically said I was kind of done with it. And at that time, I had met my wife and started dating my now wife, and her parents had some fence that needed to be redone around their place, and so they said, well, we'll pay you $6 an hour, and all the soda you can drink and all the cookies you can eat, and we'll allow you to date our daughter. So that was a pretty good deal. I did 6x raise, and we went from doing their stuff to doing a neighbor's down the road, and it just kind of went on and on. And there was a couple times when I had other jobs. I worked for CarQuest Auto Parts when I was going to college at UW, University of Wyoming, and that led me into management of CarQuest in North Platte, Nebraska, and I did that. I was the manager of that store, probably one of the youngest managers west of the Mississippi at that point in time, and that ended, unfortunately. And then I went into the oil field, which is what a lot of people in Wyoming do. And while I was in the oil field, I had a week on, week off, and that led me right back into fencing because I had all this extra time and I just couldn't do nothing. So we built fence, and that's when we decided that we were going to start a company. And I was presented with the opportunity to maybe do some directional drilling and travel across the U.S. and do that. And I talked to my mother-in-law about it. She said, hey, you know what? You've got to either decide if you're going to be, if you're going to do this fencing thing, or if you're going to be in the oil field. And the next day I went back, or the next week I went back, quit the oil field job and went strictly to fencing, and have not done anything since. And that was 2002. Yeah, 2002 when I did that. We started a company that was kind of the official start of Olson Fencing, like, paying taxes, doing all that stuff you're supposed to do.
Right.
Because I'd been doing it through high school, through college, and just kind of, it was on the DL.
Yep.
Kind of like a lot of people get started, side gig stuff. But it was basically my full-time job for a lot of those years. So we started Olson Fencing, and it took us 10 years to destroy that company, start it, build it up into something, destroy it, and basically screw it up. And I attribute that solely to the fact that we were really good at our trade. We knew what we were doing, which is the typical contractor story, but had no idea how to run a business, had no idea how you could make a ton of money and not have any money in your bank, and vice versa, have a bunch of money in your bank and be losing money hand over fist. So we ended that company in 2012 through bankruptcy, which led us into SWi, which is what we currently have. The only reason I started over again there is because nobody would offer me a job. I put in applications all over because I really wanted to move to the Nashville area or somewhere south, and couldn't even get a call. So all this experience, couldn't get a call, and the phone was still ringing even after the bankruptcy. And so we're like, my younger brother Alan and I were like, well, I don't have any other job offers, and we know how to build fence, and the phone's ringing, so we're going to do this just to take care of our family. And about a month into that, we're like, well, the phone's still ringing, and we still don't have job offers, so let's just go ahead and give this thing a whirl again, and we'll start from nothing. So started SWi. That was 2014 that we officially started that. So we just finished up what, eighth year in business, and have far surpassed what we ever did as Olson Fencing. I mean, we've grown to almost 3 times the size we ever were with Olson Fencing, with 3 locations, and have not had a year yet when we lost money, which we had more years when we lost money as Olson Fencing than we did making money. And we never knew whether or not we were making or losing money until the end of the year when the accountant told us.
Right.
It was always just the biggest surprise to us as it was to the accountant.
Yeah.
That's not the way to run a business. In case you don't know.
Yeah.
That's not how you do that.
Were you the guy dropping off bags of receipts at the accountant's office? And
it wasn't quite that bad. We didn't bring them in 5-gallon buckets or anything, but we just didn't know.
yeah.
There was some other stuff that happened in there, like family turmoil, infighting between myself and my brother when we were Olson Fencing, because it was another brother and I that owned that company, and he went back to being an electrician and hasn't built fence since. But so then fast forward, it's things are running pretty good, and I decided I wanted to buy a vacation house in Florida, and just to kind of keep my sanity throughout the winter. I was sick and tired of the winter. Love traveling, love Florida. So we bought a vacation house and came down here July of 2021 to set it up and kind of get it all ready to rent. And my wife was pretty nervous about the whole thing. She'd never been to St. Augustine. She'd never seen the house. She was just kind of trusting me in this whole process. And she came down here, saw the neighborhood and saw the house, and 3 days into getting it set up, she said, nope, sell everything in Wyoming, and this is going to be our new home. And I was like, yes, because I'd been trying to get her talked into this for years. But the funny thing is that, hey, let's just sell the house and we'll figure it out. That's not apparently a good plan for a woman. They don't like that. It was always, I knew I'd figure it out, but when she had a place to go, she was sold 100% almost immediately.
Right.
And so she has not been back to Wyoming since she left on vacation July 1st of 2021.
That's wild.
I sold the whole house. I had a garage sale where we sold all the possessions that we didn't want to take. I think a garage sale netted like $25,000. And we sold everything in 2 days and sold the house in like 2 hours for top dollar. And now we live in Florida. And when I got here, I didn't know what I was going to do because I could have done nothing, but doing nothing is really not an option for people like me. So I was like, well, I have this successful contractor. What's the topic of that channel going to be now? And I thought to myself that what we see a lot of on YouTube is people that are already successful showing us how to do things and how to, telling us how to do things. So what better way to try and connect with a contractor audience than show them the pains and struggles that you go with starting a business from scratch? And it's not just starting from scratch. I have no contacts here. I don't know anybody. I don't know how things work here. I didn't know the ground. I didn't know any of the things, the variables that were going to be different than Wyoming. And it's been a struggle. There's days that are not fun,
Right.
So that's where we're at now. And we just passed our first year and we did $1.2 million unprofitably. And so the goal is definitely to get to that $3 million in 2 years and do so profitably. 10% is what I'd like to, stay above 10% this year and be able to bring home at least $300,000 in profit. So that's the goal.
Yeah.
All the money in the world, but as I say, the top lines for show and the bottoms for the dough. So
yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's what's really cool about your channel is you are documenting the reality of the situation. And your point, a lot of guys are saying, hey, here's how it works. Here's how to be successful. But actually documenting the journey. And I've watched some of your videos, wrecking the trailer and everything else, that's just to see the reality of it. And so, but I think the other thing you do is you come through really strong with just an educational point of view. And so teaching people the nuts and bolts of how to do it, which I think is huge. So the successful contractor, really, your channel, it really is about helping guys figure out how to win. And is there, so you're running really 2 businesses. I mean, you're running SWi Fence Florida, and then running a YouTube channel is a whole separate deal. What's your goal with the YouTube channel specifically?
That's really where my passion is, and I would like to be doing more YouTube stuff and less of the other. So I run SWi Wyoming, I run Florida, and then have YouTube. So yeah, it's like 3 different jobs, and then we started this new company where we've got a patented system to install aluminum fence without digging, because that's our whole thing in Florida is a no dig system, trying to do everything without digging holes, and so that kind of plays into the YouTube side, because what we're doing is so new. It's some of it's new, some of it's not new, but there's a lot of pushback because this is just the way things have always been done.
Yeah.
And so trying to get people to understand that just because it's been done that way doesn't mean that the way we're doing is worse. And what we're trying to do is prove to them that it's better in a lot of ways. So that's a big goal of our YouTube channel for SWi, is just to educate people on the different ways and how to's, and then more testing. And the successful contractor kind of ties into that, because we have to come down in here to a saturated market, and we have to differentiate ourselves. And so what we did was we said, what do we do? What can we do that is going to offer value to our customers that nobody else is doing, so that we can eliminate competition? And that's why we embraced the no dig method. Number one, it's better, it's faster, it's easier on our guys, which labor's hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us a USP. We have a unique selling proposition that nobody can compete against us on.
Yeah. I think if you're, going to a market and not having any contacts and just starting from scratch, that's a pretty unique challenge. I think you've talked about, so you're now managing kind of a complex business. And in a couple of your videos, you talk about the guy who says, well, it's just easier to stay small. And you mentioned that too, where the guy is like, hey, I was making $20 working for someone else. I'm going to go out my own, charge 30. And now I think I'm rolling in the dough. Can you talk through, we'll talk about pricing a bit later, but the guy who says it's easier to stay small, because we run into that quite a bit here at ConGenius as contractors. They're a one-man show. It's easier to not have to manage people. I can charge myself time and materials by myself and not grow. What advice would you give that person?
So, the reason people don't like that is because they don't want the headaches. But here's the thing is that we're getting paid for risk. If we do things right and we manage our risk appropriately, then that's what's going to actually lead to the rewards that we want. Is we take on risk, and what we do, we take on risk in the forms of jobs and labor. Our labor and our jobs are the biggest risk we have. So if we can mitigate that and hire really good people and only get the jobs that are best suited to us, we mitigate a lot of that risk, and that gives us the ability to grow. But if we want to hire, if we want to hire people that are not the best fit for us and aren't going to do the work properly, then we take on undue risk. And that's when people have really bad experiences, and then they're like, I just want to stay small. But what I tell those people is they oftentimes get to where they want to own their own business because they want the freedom. But the minute something happens to them, or they decide that they want to take vacation or go do something, the money stops coming in. So that's the risk that they take on unduly. They're maybe not realizing it, that you can stay small, but you're never going to get the real freedom. The real freedom comes from when you can step outside your business and be gone for a month and things still run like clockwork. And that's my measure of success, has always been that. It's not a dollar amount that I'm looking for. I don't care how much money I make, but what I want is, I want something so successful that I can still make a living off of it and never spend a day in it.
Yeah.
That's success.
Well, I think that, that acknowledgement of risk, because I think that is true. A lot of guys, well, it's just too much risk to take on employees and to grow and to, a lot of guys we work with don't even have a website, don't even have they're just straight word of mouth only. And that's working for them right now. Maybe it's worked for 3 or 4 years where they just rely on word of mouth with no marketing, no ability to find them on the internet or anything. But I think that's a great way of phrasing it, because they don't want to take on the risk of employees and growth and all of that. But your position of, hey, you're taking on a separate risk of, now you're tying yourself to being in the field every single day, until your body breaks down or you can't, or what's the plan after that, So either way, you're taking on a risk. That's, choose which one you want, We had a guy in here recently who was, a contractor, and he's like, hey, I'm just getting old. Like, my body can't do what it used to do. And he's the one-man show who's never had an employee, and you begin to see that where guys are, that risk of staying small while it's easy in the moment, you got to fast forward 10, 15 years of where you want to be.
Yeah, it's the 25-year-olds. They're like, I'm young, I'm healthy, and everything is going good. Wait till you're 45. I was just in Georgia doing some prison fencing, climbing up and down ladders all day long. I'm not out of shape. I'm not, I'm not. But trust me, in the morning, I felt it. I was like, even that night, after climbing up and down ladders and packing stuff because we couldn't get any equipment to any of this, and it's all heavy, and um, I went and sat down for an hour and then went to get up, and I was like, wow, I feel this. I mean, you just do. And people that are 25, I'm watching these 25-year-olds that are working with me, and they're like, it's not a big deal, but they're not 45. And when you 45, or get to 55, I don't want to still be shoveling holes out when I'm 55. You can enjoy the work, but not want to do all that. And then, these people, we talk about the risk. What happens when you get hurt? Now all of a sudden your total income just went away. You went away overnight because you have nobody else to take your place and keep making that income. So that's a risk in and of itself. And people never like to think about when that can happen. But I've seen that happen to people. They're like, I had all these jobs and I took deposits on it, and now I've got some, I'm laid up in the hospital for 2 months. And that's a huge, as far as I'm concerned, that they don't really account for.
Yeah, that's real scary. But yeah, again, when I was 25, I wasn't thinking about any of that either. You feel invincible. Hey, so Mark, on one of your videos, you talked about why contractors struggle, and you said, hey, the number one reason is guys aren't charging enough. Can you kind of break down why you see contractors end up in that spot where they're not charging enough?
So I think that comes from the mentality, like we talked about a little bit ago. I was working for $20 an hour, and so if I charge 30, that's really what I want to make. Because I want to make $30 an hour. That's a 50% pay increase, and I'm going to mark up my materials just a little bit, some arbitrary number. Then I'll be cutting a fat hog, and we'll all walk away fat and happy. And that's really not the case, because what you've done at that point in time is basically just bought a job. You're not running a business. You just bought a job, and you own your job at that point in time. You can take all that $30 home, but what you're not accounting for is all the repairs, taxes, business costs, having to buy printer paper, just even all the stupid stuff that you're going to need. You're going to need tools. Where's the money for the tools going to come from? To build a business takes more money than that. And a lot of people that are W-2 employees don't understand all the costs that go into it and how hard it is to turn a profit. They look at, well, you're charging my labor out at, $50 an hour, and I'm only getting 20 of that. How in the world, what are you doing with that other $30? And they don't understand, even when the business does get that $30, if they're running it to the best of their ability, maybe at the end of the day, they can get 10% of the gross to drop down to the bottom line. It's so easy to lose money because there's so many things, and they don't understand that there's payroll taxes they need to pay that go on top of that. And, every time you turn around, somebody's got their hand in your pocket, for something or another, or you blow a tire, or you need a trailer. Where are you going to get the money to buy the trailers and stuff if you want, and to have the equipment that you want to use in the future? If you're tired of using postal diggers today, where are you going to get the money to be able to buy an auger to use tomorrow? That stuff costs money. That's what we call building a business. And unless you have money to do that, you're not building a business. You just own a job, and you'll never have the things that you really want, which is why I see people down here in Florida using complete garbage. It's not uncommon to see people rolling around with some jalopy trailer that looks like it was made in somebody's back shop, that's fallen apart, with a truck that's beat up and a load of fence material on it. Those people own their job, and they're bad for the industry. Most of them probably aren't licensed, probably not paying any taxes. And, but they own their job, and they think they're cutting a fat hog. And in reality, if they just went to a good company and started working with a good company that took good care of them, they'd probably do better.
Yeah.
I just watched a TikTok this morning that I'm going to stitch, because the guy was talking about that exactly. He looked at his job, and he's like, he's a carpenter. He said, I'm making $10 an hour, and I finally beat my employer up enough to find out that he was charging my labor out at $75 an hour. And I just thought that was terrible. And so I went out on my own and I started my company, and he was in tears because he was failing.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
The raw emotion on his face, he's like, and he thought that he was going to make all this money, and his company's failing. He's struggling, and he's doing worse now than he was at $10 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what breaking that down, building a business versus owning a job, and that's two totally different things that you really got to think about. We spend a lot of time with contractors, and the reality is 80% of them go out of business in the first 5 years. And it starts with understanding your numbers because they're talented. You can be talented. You can be a great fence builder. You can be a great carpenter. You can be a genius at your craft. But figuring out the basics of turning that into a business is a different ballgame. And a lot of it does start with how you price and how you cost. For the guy who's maybe they understand that mathematically, what you just said of, okay, I understand taxes and all those things. But we found a lot of people in this space have a hard time actually asking for that, like asking the customer to pay that high price tag because they want to be the lower cost option, or they have a hesitancy to sell their talents for a higher price. What would you tell a guy who struggles to just raise his prices for his customers?
I tell people this all the time, and you know how much pushback I get. Well, I just can't because everybody else in my area is charging. I wouldn't get any work, and all the people that are just starting out, the only thing they're concerned with is being the cheapest. That is all they care about. Every single one of them just wants to be the cheapest because they're trying to get their name out there, and that's not the way to go about building a business. I can't. I had that mentality back when we were Olson Fencing that we would need to be cheap, and hopefully is it breaking up?
No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, that we needed to be the cheapest, and that's just a race to the bottom. That's not going to lead you anywhere you want to be. You have to figure out how to sell your skills and your talents and your ability for what it's worth. Now if you have no ability, then you can't charge top dollar. But if you've got all the ability in the world, you should be able to charge top dollar. Our customers receive a level of care and quality craftsmanship that is unmatched by anybody else in our area. And we've set out to do that. That's just what we do. And we charge a premium for it.
Yeah. And I think it's not apologizing for it either. At the end of the day, like it does, it costs you money. Am I breaking up again?
Yeah, it's you cut out for a second. What I was going to also say, geez, what the heck was my thought?
Quality craftsmanship.
Oh, yeah. So you want to know what our sales pitch down here in Florida is? When somebody calls up and says, I need a fence. I don't know how she words it because I'm not the one that gives it, but it's basically, we're probably the most expensive. We're not probably the most expensive option. We are the most expensive option out there. We're going to be 10 to 20% more than any other bid that you've gotten so far. So if what you're looking for is the cheapest price, we can't guarantee you that. And in fact, we won't be able to do that. But if what you want is the best quality craftsman, or the best fence that you can get, built to the highest standards possible with the professional level of care that we, I don't know, something like that.
I was sold.
Yeah. Yeah. If, with extra craftsmen, then we're your people.
Yeah.
But we're not going to show up on your job site with a bunch of people that look like they're strung out on meth. We're going to have the kind of people that you invite into your home to have, a cookout with on Saturday evening. We want the kind of quality people in your house that that don't freak you out.
Yeah. Yeah.
If the people that are showing up on your job site creep you out, then you hired the wrong company.
Right.
And we pay more for those people. And guess what? That costs us more.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that makes sense. What does that do for your customer base then? Because the other thing too is, as a business owner, a lot of times you don't necessarily want to be working for the person who only wants the cheapest deal. Has that changed that approach? Has that changed the clientele of who you end up doing work for?
Oh, absolutely. I think that if we're honest with them and we tell them what we're all about, then we get the people that just want the cheapest stuff. I don't care how much money they have. They are some of the worst people to work for, honestly. If the first thing out of their mouth is I've got 12 other bids and I'm looking for the best price, then my answer to you is what didn't you like about those 12 people? You can always find somebody cheaper. What's stopping you from choosing one of them? Because it's not going to be me.
Right.
I'm not even going to come out and visit you for that because I'm not your guy. Because the only thing you care about is price, and I care about quality. My name's going on this fence, and we don't offer our limited lifetime craftsmanship warranty so that we can turn around and cut every corner so that we can hopefully make a dime off you. That's just not what we're going to do.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a mentality shift that has to happen for guys. Again, if you've got a great craft, which a lot of guys are really good at what they do, but there's a mentality of what is that worth? What does it cost? And if you want to get out of owning a job and building a business, you have to, charge higher prices. And, and not be ashamed of it. Like you're great at what
Oh,
you do. You are doing ultimately something that homeowner can't or won't do for themselves. And there's a price tag.
mhm.
They don't have the skill set. Um, you've talked about software being a secret weapon to grow your business, and that's our business and ConGenius. And how did you start? How did tell me the difference that software makes in how you run your business? And then if you could even get into guys who are hesitant, because I think a lot of people in the contractor space, they didn't get into it because they enjoy working behind computers. They enjoy working in the field, working with their hands, building, doing, and the idea of software can be intimidating. Can you break down the difference it's made for you, and maybe what you tell a guy who's hesitant to bring their business into the software space?
So what I would say about software is it makes our life easier, and we have so many tools at our disposal right now to be able to communicate effectively with not only our team, but with our consumers or our customers. And software is really the link to do that. If we want to charge more money, then we need to make sure that we're professional in all of our aspects. That means not writing out something on a napkin and handing it to the homeowner and say, "Hey, give me $10,000 for your fence." I need to do something better than that. I need to show them that I'm professional, especially when you're starting up. It's extremely important when you're starting up because they already don't have the level of trust that some of the other companies have because they've built huge reviews on Google and they have all this other stuff. If you're a new company, you have to embrace that software because you're going to have to be more professional than everybody else out there. And trust me, the bar is high there. You can't just scratch something out on a sheet of paper and hand it to them. It needs to look good, and software is a part of that. The other thing I would say is that you need to have good CRM. You need to be able to manage those relationships to the fullest extent possible to help you close the most jobs possible. So we use CRM for all that stuff, and that's been the stuff we're using now. I wish it was available years and years and years ago, but we use software actually helps eliminate a lot of the people that we would have needed several years ago to do the same tasks because we have automations and we're doing a better job at keeping in contact with our customers than we've ever done and using less labor force to do that. And software is how we do that.
Yeah. For the guy who's and I think CRM makes a huge difference. For someone who's never used software, because we look at like our market space, 70% of the guys aren't using anything. They are the piece of paper writing it down. Talk to me about the proposal itself and the value of putting that out. I think you mentioned it. Hey, like, how do I look more professional? In your mind, what goes into a proposal that wins you a job that you want?
So what goes into our proposals is we're trying to explain to them exactly what they're getting so that hopefully they can get apples to apples. It's really tough because so many other people are just handing out a sheet of paper saying, "Hey, it's $6,000 to do your project." And you hope that they got all the information right. We're trying to give them footages, a diagram to show them exactly where their fence is going, how long each run is, where your gates are, what materials we're going to be using. So what grade of materials, because it's not, they're not all the same. For example, our vinyl fence, we're using 2x7 rails instead of 1.5 by 5.5. That's a lot bigger, heavier rail, and we're trying to communicate that with the customer through our proposal process. We're also trying to tell them other things on our proposal that carries our warranty. So what warranty does the vinyl product itself have, or the wood, or the chain link, and what warranty does our company offer? And so like I said, our company offers that limited lifetime warranty. We're confident enough in our ability to put in a good fence that we will give you a limited lifetime craftsmanship warranty saying that fence is not going to fall apart.
Yeah.
Nobody does that. That's part of what
Yeah.
you're getting for a couple extra dollars a foot,
Yeah. Right. I think it makes sense too. And again, that also leads into the type of customer that you want. If you're putting out that high end proposal and someone who values what you bring, they are going to pay more for it. And frankly, the person who doesn't value what you bring is probably not the customer you want anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you, one last kind of subject that I'm curious about is talking about building a team, right? Because you've talked through that in your channel a bit, is finding the right people to build a team. Because if you are ever going to graduate from owning a job into running a business, you've got to invest in and lead and develop people to build a team. What are and moving to Florida and starting all over where you didn't know anybody, that's probably a particularly huge challenge. you're on your YouTube channel, you break down some of the lessons that you've learned, but if you could summarize, what have you learned about hiring the right people to come and join you at SWi Fence? What are the most important lessons you've learned?
So I would say number one, vet them, really get, especially your key players, the key people you're going to put into different positions, vet them out well. But if you want to attract people, the number one thing that I would tell new business owners is they're all trying to find somebody for what they were making, which is crazy. So I just left a job where I was making $10 an hour, and now I want to make $20 an hour, and I want to try and hire people to do the same job for me for $10 an hour. And what do you think they're getting? They're getting garbage,
Right.
because that's the only people available. If you want to get better people, you're going to have to pay more. And if you are going to have to pay more to get your labor force, then you're going to have to charge more. And that really blows their mind. People are terrible at this. I can't believe this concept is so difficult for people. So, and like I say, and I just left a job doing that. So if you want good top shelf talent, you're going to have to pay for it. You need to figure out what is going to get people's interest to get the people in the door that are going to help you move the needle, because that's really where your stress goes down.
Mm-hmm.
My stress started diminishing when I got really good people. So I've got, some key people and put them in place, and they take a load off of me. And that's really what's helped us move the ball forward. So in the first, let's see, so from January to May, we had only done 200 and some $1,000, maybe 290. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at one of the most recent successful contractor videos. And then I got a husband and wife team that came over, and they basically told me what they wanted. And I said, that's a lot. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but you guys know what you're doing, and I'm not going to have to spend a bunch of time training you. So that's a value to me. I'm going to pay you more than I would somebody that didn't know what they were doing, substantially, but it took all that stress off of me having to train them. And the crazy thing is, I'll tell you a little story. So if you want to get a job and you're somebody that wants to get a job that's like this is what this gal did. Her name's Amber, and her husband was coming over here doing some work for us. And she's like, well, he's over here and he's doing sales, and I just work from home. What do you got to keep me busy? And can I answer some phones for you? Just do something. And I said, yeah, sure. Here. Here's a computer. I set her up with a computer, and she worked for like 4 weeks for nothing, just because she was here working with her husband. She's like, I don't really care. I like to help out. And I didn't think I was even going to hire her. And so she worked for 4 weeks for nothing. I was like, man, I feel terrible. And then they're like, well, would you consider hiring me? And I'm like, yeah, I'd consider hiring you, because you just took all that load off my shoulders.
Yep.
So she literally worked for 4 weeks. She had another job that she was working from home at, but just kind of filling in and helping out. And she could name her price at that point in time, because I wasn't letting her go anywhere. Where everybody else is like, show me the money. She was like, let me just show you what I can do. And then she's like, no, I want the money. And I was like, take all the money I have,
Right,
because you have made my life so much easier. But I paid for that talent. And that's what people don't want to do. They want the talent, but they don't want to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for it. And just if you start out, I don't care what the number is, but let's say you're trying to hire fence installers, and you're advertising at $18 an hour and you get nothing, go up. You're not, your price isn't high enough. Go to 22. And then if you're still not getting anything, you still have to go up. And that makes people incredibly uncomfortable. And they're like, why? When I was installing, I never got that much money, but that's where the market is. And one of the things I'm realizing now more than ever is that inflation has infected the labor market more than I think we realize.
right.
You're going to find that you have to pay a lot more. It's blowing even my mind how fast we're having to adjust our pay scales to keep up. But when you're paying, $5 for a gallon of gas and $12 in a right arm for a 12-pack of eggs or something, that's just the way it is.
Right.
So, we want people, like I said, I want people that you're comfortable with, that are just good quality people. And you don't find that at $10 an hour. You're going to have to pay, but they help you run a business. They're what's going to help you build a business so that you don't own your job.
Yeah.
And you have to build a culture of people you want to be around. I don't want to hire people that I don't like.
Right. Yeah. You spend more time working with your coworkers than you do your own family most of the time. So you better enjoy being around them. Any tips on keeping people? So that's how you find them. Once you've got someone good, what have you found are ways to keep your best people other than paying?
Well, The best way to keep good people is get rid of the bad people. That's secret number one. We don't let the donkeys hang with the stallions. When we find a donkey, we get rid of them.
Boom.
So they will absolutely, in any organization, and you can think about anybody that's had a job, they're like, well, they just wouldn't get rid of the bad people, and so I had to leave. No, don't do that. Be quick to get rid of the people that are not working out. And it can be that they're not working out, or they're just lazy, or they just are not a good culture fit after you get in there for whatever reason. And it's different in different states. But you've got to find a way to weed those people out. They've got to be gone. They can't be a part, because they will poison your culture, and that's what really ruins people's attitudes. The second thing I would say is you got to take care of them once you get them there. You know, if you bring them on and you kind of bring them on at the lower end of your pay scale, and then 15, 30 days into it, they're just killing it. They're crushing it. Show them the money.
Yeah.
You know, show them the raise. Don't wait to give them more money until they come and ask you for it. One of my defining, something that we do that's a little bit different is we try and give people raises well before they ask for it. And we do such a good job at that. I like to think we do such a good job at that I've never had anybody come to me and ask me for a raise, because we've been proactive in all that. Now, There have been people that have come to me and asked me for a raise. You know who asked me for a raise? The people that don't need to be there. That's who asked.
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm not kidding on this. The people that come and ask me for a raise are oftentimes the people I probably need to get rid of.
Yeah.
It's weird.
No, but that makes total sense. As you're saying that, like, I've managed and led teams for a long time, and it's 100% accurate, you know? And by the time they're coming and asking you for more money, they're normally already looking for more money from somebody else as well. And so, yeah, I think if you can, pay the ones who deserve to be there, but you got a quote there that someone had to write down, but it's like, the best way to keep your good people is to get rid of your bad ones. And that's 100% accurate. Everyone's worked on a team or for a business where they're surrounded by bad people, and good people don't stay in those atmospheres. They don't stay on those teams. They want to play for winning teams.
No, the stallions don't want to be running around with a bunch of donkeys. They just don't. Right. Nobody wants to have to carry your weight. But if you don't do that, you will have a team full of donkeys and nobody will get anything done.
Right.
I guarantee it. And I learned that a long time ago. And
that's
like I say, the other part of it is take good care of them and do what you can, because a lot of people think, well, I can't afford health insurance, or I can't afford a 401k. I can't do some of these other things, but there's things you can do. You know, we have rain days down here in Florida. Have a very generous PTO. You know, allow them enough PTO so that when there's a rain day, they still get paid, but they got to use their PTO days. Yeah. You know, maybe you have 3 weeks of PTO, which is something we're kicking around, is instead of having a week that they don't have PTO that they get after a year, having 3 weeks, but they have to use that 3 weeks for all their holidays, rain days, vacations, whatever, and they're only allowed that many days.
Yeah.
So kick that around, do the small stuff, have, you know, dinners and events where their families can show up and really help bond, because the people that play together stay together. I mean, it's true. You have to be comfortable, and involving spouses and all that stuff, I think, is incredibly important and can really help build strong bonds and culture. Other things, just think of all the small things you can do. If you see somebody struggling and they don't have, you know, their tires are always bald, but they're just killing it for you, go buy them a set of tires. Do the small stuff that you can do. Yeah. I mean, look for those opportunities to serve your people, because when you serve your people well, your people will serve your customers well. And they don't forget that stuff. I'm always looking for those opportunities where I can help one of our team members out. And there's another key right there. Don't call them employees. Employees, Dave Ramsey says, they show up late, they leave early, and they still where they're there. And I think it's true. A team is what we are, because we're all trying to go home better at the end of the day than we started the day. I'm just looking for those opportunities to try and help them out, maybe do something for them that they can't do for themselves. But hey, you know what? The secret to all that stuff, you can't do it without profits, and you can't do it if you're not charging enough. Right. It all comes back to pricing. If you screw that up, you will be able to do nothing else. Right.
Yeah. Man, Mark, you're the type of dude I want to work for, you know, just like your mentality, the way you think about your business. You know, you've got this goal of getting to, you know, the $3 million business. And, you know, I have no doubt that a guy like you is going to get there. So, man, I appreciate you taking time to spend time with us today. For our listeners and followers, if they're looking to get more content from you, which they should be, because you go in depth on all these subjects on your YouTube channel, what's the best way for them to find you?
So we're a Successful Contractor on YouTube. We also have TikTok by the same name. And then if you're looking for fence specific stuff or kind of want to see how we market ourselves fence wise, then you can check out our SWi Fence on YouTube. SWi Fence. We also have a store. And we've got TikToks by all those names as well. So if you want to see some of the stuff we do, we'd love to have you.
Cool. All right, Mark, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for taking time to spend time with us on the ConGenius Contractor Commute. Guys like you and just spilling your knowledge are what helps make the industry better. So thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Appreciate it.